Chapter 8, Personal and Organizational Ethics. It's interesting is that in our personal lives, at home, when we go to church, when we go to school and so on, we're individuals. We have our own personal lives outside of the work context. But once that we do show up at the organizational, is that we play roles as employees and or as managers, top management in fact in some cases. There is a different approach in some of these cases as to what we do with ethics. Now, there are many rights in this country, not just this country, but other countries too, and some of them conflict with each other. Look here, smokers' rights and non-smokers' rights. We know how those two conflict. And by the way, this list, it isn't a total list. There's still more stuff that is not even here. We're called upon to be good leaders. One of the topics that they use, or terms that they use in the textbook, is servant leadership. Leaders who listen, are empathetic, they help heal problems, that they're persuasive, that they're aware of issues, that they can see into the future. They have that foresight and to conceptualize and to work with a commitment to the growth of people within the organization. Stewardship is that they take care of the organization. It's part of that and that's a special kind of terminology, maybe within organizations, especially here. We would talk about the principals and other employees in the organization that are supposed to take care, and principals and agents that take care of the organizations. Well, what do we do when there's conflicts? Because there are going to be conflicts. Well, we take a look at the moral level and we choose a stronger one. Now, when we have ideals, a little bit different than morals, that when they conflict, we honor the more important ideal. Now, at a lower level, when the effects are mixed, choose the action that produces the greater good or less harm. Now, here we go with the factors, and they go from, generally, they go from highest or most important to least important, but it's top management, superiors. We want to know, what do they do to affect the organizational moral climate? We look to our bosses. We also look to our peers, to our left and to our right. We also take a look at what goes on in industry or our professional organizations. What do they say? We look to generally the whole society. What's going on in society? What would they say? We'd also look within the organization to take a look at the policy book. Maybe there isn't one, and that's a real bad message right there when there's no message given to employees. And the final one, can you imagine employees that are short of money, what they might do to maybe cut corners and do something about that? We don't want to do that. So let's say that you're the ethical leader. What do? Well, one is you articulate the purpose and values of the organization. We've got to say what it is that we're doing right. And we focus on success of the organization rather than my personal ego or success. We find the right people, we help them, we develop them. We create a conversation with all of our employees and our stakeholders inside, outside the organization about ethics, values, and what should we do. We create opportunities or mechanisms for dissent. We try to understand other people's values. We may not agree with them, but to understand so that we can include them in the conversation. We have to make tough calls and yet be imaginative about doing the right thing. We also need to know the limits and values and ethical principles about how is this going to work? What do we need to do? What are the limitations here? And we always need to talk about it in ethical terms. Now, let's hope that every organization should have an ethics program. At Texas A&M, we do have one. We have it written. We also have training. We also have mechanisms for seeking advice or information. In fact, there are telephone numbers. There are people that are suggested that we talk to. We also have a way of reporting misconduct anonymously. I hope that you have it in your organization too. We also discipline those employees who violate ethical standards, and that means to the very top of the organization, and it may even mean dismissal. And we always should include ethical conduct in the evaluation of employee performance. If we don't reward it, how do we expect for it to be repeated and for it to grow? Finally, we're going to talk here about what happened in 2002 with the Sarbanes-Oxley Act that was passed, is that we found that companies are now required to protect whistleblowers without fear of retaliation. Whistleblowing should not be a bad thing. Of course, it shouldn't be done lightly, but if it's necessary, don't retaliate. Also, it makes it a crime that if you alter, change, conceal, cover up, or falsify anything of any document or testimony or anything that can prevent a federal government lawsuit, you are in trouble. Anyway, this is the end of Chapter 8.